teachers, what's the worst case of "no, not my child" you've ever seen from a parent who's been called in for their kid's behavior? I had a parent follow me to my offices multiple times after I caught her son cheating. He was caught red-handed. The policy is a 0. It just happened to be on the biggest grade of the year, pretty much failing him for the class. His mother came to lecture me that he would never. I showed her the proof, video of him in class cheating, and she began screaming that it was doctored footage. I kicked her out of my office. It didn't stop there. She came to a faculty meeting, tried to take me to court, and followed me through a store one day. I had to call the cops. Also, this was when I was adjunct at a college and the student in question was 23. Imagine being 23 and your mom is fighting for your professors on your behalf. That's so embarrassing. I got caught cheating once when I was like 15 and owned up to it and accepted the consequences. No parents involved. Owning up to your bad decisions is something you should do starting at adolescence. Really, well, before adulthood. But how do you learn to do that with a mother like that lunatic? English teacher here. Had a student submit a verbatim copied and pasted review of a book from one of those homework help websites. The problem for her was that I hadn't asked for a review. I had asked for an essay about the main character. When I called the mother to talk about it, she demanded to meet me and the principal to talk about my incorrect accusation. I brought her daughter's essay and the original submission to the homework website. The mom first tried to argue that the daughter wrote both. When I pointed out the publication date was from several years earlier, she tried to argue that with so many students submitting writing to me, someone was bound to accidentally write something identical to someone else. You read that correctly. She was trying to argue that her daughter just happened to write an identical review, word for word, instead of admitting that her daughter copied and pasted the assignment. The principal responded by saying, "Ma'am, that's statistically improbable. Pretty much impossible." The mother refused to back down and argued that there's a first time for everything and that in no way would her daughter ever plagiarize. Her daughter was suspended the next week for copying and pasting an entire essay for her psychology class. My school didn't do after-school detentions. Instead, we do one-day in-school suspensions. How do you check plagiarism? Do teachers actually use those plagiarism check websites? Some teachers' schools do, but they're expensive and spotty. The biggest hell is when a student suddenly starts using vocabulary and sentence structures that are well beyond what you've seen from them, or when a submission isn't really on topic with what you were asking them to do. Then a quick Google search of a line from their essay usually turns up the original source material. She said her child was only acting out, not doing work because he's being influenced by the satanic imagery in our classroom. Then she pointed to the Coco poster on the wall. "Yo, where are you even from? I'm Spanish and went to a Catholic school, and even there nobody was that crazy." There was a kid in my class whose father was a Wall Street banker, and his mom was a doctor. Basically, the sick kid's parents were never around. This kid was the freaking worst. He would stick tacks on other kids' chairs when they got up to blow their nose or sharpen their pencil. I caught him rifling through other students' lunches one morning, and he had a pack of Twinkies in his hand. I told him to put the Twinkies back and sent him to the principal. One time he was having a beef with some of the other kids and waited for the kid to use the bathroom, followed him in and punched him in the gut. There are no security cameras in the bathrooms and he didn't leave a mark, so nobody could really prove anything one way or another. During parent-teacher conference, I told his mom that her son needs to stop playing poker on his Apple Watch during class, as well as some of the other proven behavior problems. She flew off the handle and said, "How dare you accuse my son of doing that stuff, you dumb broad." That conversation explained a lot about where he got it. My wife's aunt was a nanny for 2 kids whose parents were both doctors. They were never ever home and she did her best to raise them. Problem was that she was the only discipline they ever got because when they were with the parents, they wanted everything to be sunshine and roses, so they never got onto the kids. Many years ago, I had this awful boy in the next class with a girl that was not all there. I was the teacher next door. They were about 7. One of the boys was basically banging the girl up against a desk from behind very hard, and it was hurting the girl. So he'll pull back a bit and then slam himself as hard as he can against her butt as she bent over a table. These kids are 7, so who knows what's going through their head. I'm not implying anything. I shouted stop. They stopped. Then I told their teachers that's all I did. Teacher wrote a note home. Parent comes in livid, shouting at everyone, saying I scared the kid. Doesn't matter what their kid was doing. If I ever say anything to the kid again, they'll get me fired. Boss watched the video, cleared me of wrongdoing, notes the kid had been abusing that girl for a while before I got there, told the parents she didn't care. Railed on about how I traumatized her child by yelling stop while her kid was assaulting a mentally handicapped girl. It's not unlikely that the boy was sexually abused. Parents may have known, hence her angry defensiveness. Caught him smoking outside. 12 years old. Chronic asthma. Parents wouldn't have it. Not a teacher, but my wife volunteered at the school store where kids could buy erasers, pencils, etc. 2 older girls repeatedly came in and stole things on camera while she was working. She reported it and they called the girls and the parents in, told them what happened, and they said their children wouldn't do that. Then the school showed the parents the video and the parents still claim their children wouldn't steal, all while watching it happen on video. They were banned from the store and the parents actually said that the school was just being racist because their daughters wouldn't steal. I've worked retail for years and this is very common with adults who shoplift. We'll have video evidence and people will still deny it. They probably had parents that did this and they never grew out of it. The best ultimatum we give is, you can either give the stuff back and never return, or we can hand this video over to the cops and you can try to convince them that this isn't you. There are scores of bullied children in my school and not one single bully. So not a teacher, but this kid in my class used to hit other kids pretty regularly without any teacher intervention because it was either outside of school or just a small peck that would hurt but wasn't really making someone cry. One day this kid became so aggressive he almost beat the wind out of a kid in our class. The teacher was away but we all saw him do it. Teacher came back and saw him hit the kid. We were all so surprised we didn't know what to do. I was called as a witness and we got sent out of class. I wasn't in any trouble, of course. The parents of both of them got called and they arrived at the school between an hour and 2 hours. When the situation was explained, the parents of the kid who started hitting the other kid just wouldn't believe it was their son who did it. Our son wouldn't hurt a fly. He has never been aggressive. Even after I told them this wasn't the first time, they called me stupid and a liar. They even brought in other kids from our class. The son noticed his parents defending him and started saying he would never hit anyone and definitely not him because he liked him as a person. Well, the school decided to suspend the kid and we've never seen him since. He moved to another school and the parents tried to sue the school for them suspending the kid. Don't think it worked. A 4-year-old boy in my class was picking fights on a daily basis and would lash out at teachers that tried to intervene, punching, kicking, and throwing chairs, screaming at the top of his lungs. He was being raised by his grandma, who was thoroughly convinced that everything we told her was exaggerated or that the other kids were the ones starting the fights. When I was 6 months pregnant, he was mad that outside time was over. So he pushed me with both of his arms right in my belly. When I told his grandma, she asked if I was having a girl. I was. She chuckled. He's fighting with her because boys and girls don't get along. It'd be a miracle if that kid doesn't end up in prison. My child is totally perfect and the shove didn't do any damage. Also, for those suggesting the kid should have been shoved or smacked or kicked across the room, please keep in mind that he was 4. As teachers, it's our jobs to be more in control of our emotions than our students. Not me, but my wife who is a teacher. The first year my wife was teaching, she was in the middle of a school teaching a foreign language. One student was very smart, but very lazy. He wouldn't turn in a thing, but would get an A on every test, so overall he had a very average grade. One day the student's dad walked into my wife's classroom. The dad started by introducing himself and told her that he was on the school board. He said to her that his son was so special he shouldn't have to do homework. His reasoning? His son was so special that he had been accepted to a summer program at XYZ University. He was so quick to point out that XYZ was one of the top 10 rated universities in the US. As such, he was clearly too smart for her to understand, because they don't just let anyone into XYZ. So clearly, she should let the son not do the homework. My wife graciously listened, but the guy hadn't done his homework either. You see, my wife graduated from XYZ University. Almost no one goes into teaching who graduates from there, but she fell in love with it. So she had the great pleasure of telling him she graduated from XYZ. And she saw plenty of smart people come to XYZ University who were brilliant, but didn't do the assignments or study much, and how every single one of those people failed out of XYZ. The dad was stunned. He apparently called the principal to verify my wife attended that university because he didn't believe her. As a side note, the son was not late with one assignment for the rest of the year for any of his teachers. So in the end, I guess this isn't a no, not my child story, but it was about to be one. I was among those who got their asses handed to them freshman year of college. I had to learn how to study, and it was really hard to do with few study skills or habits. Only one teacher made me work in high school, which in retrospect it was just wrong. Further, many schools where I am from are eliminating the requirement to do homework. For the brightest of the students, this is a horrible idea. See the responses below to see why. I believe the skills learned doing the work are as important as the subject matter being learned. I wish I had been forced to do more work in high school. It would have made college so much easier. Google standards-based grading, a trend sweeping the country which I find a horrible idea personally. Dad, my son deserves special treatment. Teacher, no he doesn't, here's why. Dad, fair enough, I'll see myself out. I follow a lot of crime news. A 16-year-old boy murdered this girl who was supposedly pregnant with his kid and didn't tell him after 6 months. I guess she had some foresight into the type of person he was, but still wanted to keep the kid. Anyway, the guy's parents came out saying it wasn't his fault. He would never do something like that, and he has always been a good boy. Makes me wonder if his family is just in denial, or if you really can't know what somebody may be plotting even in your own home. My boyfriend is a cop who all too commonly hears parents of a murderer say, "He's a good boy, he would never do that," etc. And then you'll pull up his rap sheet and it shows convictions for assault, armed robbery, etc. Yeah, right, a perfect angel.